As of today, 88 settlements in Kherson have been liberated. At the same time, Russia is considering to give up a major city in Kherson region, Beryslav, which can potentially be the last step before their ultimate retreat. But unfortunately, more and more evidence shows that Russians are planning to destroy a Kakhovka hydro plant and it's them to flood Kherson region and cover their withdrawal. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And our first video comes to us from Belgrade, where reportedly a paint warehouse is on fire. Then we move down to Kharkov, where we can see the consequences of Russian shelling. Our next stop brings us to Zaporozhye, where we can see this black smoke, which is most likely the result of a missile attack. And then we have this picture of a residential building, which shows us the consequences of this strike. And before I talk about Ukrainians who resumed their attacks against Antonovskiy bridge, and believe me, this is huge, allow me to just quickly give you a couple of words about these energy-saving measures across entire Ukraine. So, if you remember, Ukrainian authorities asked the people of Ukraine to use as little energy as possible. And right here, for example, we have one of Ukrainian channels which is doing a news report, and they're using candles as their light source. And even though, as you can see from this map, the vast majority of Ukrainian regions actually decreased their energy consumption, there was still, however, several regions which in return increased the electricity usage. And these regions are Chernigivsky, Kiev and Mykolaiv region. Alright, and now as promised, let's very briefly talk about Ukrainians who resume their attacks against Antonovskiy bridge. And while I'm going there, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you like this style of daily updating. You can also follow me on Instagram, because the weekends are coming and I will most likely post some stories. Alright, so in this video, which is pretty dark, but we can still see the missiles which are heading towards Antonovskiy bridge and they reach their final destinations. And this mysteriously happened right after Russian infiltrators Sergei Aksionov and Sergei Kirenko visited this bridge. Russians obviously immediately blamed Ukrainians for this attack, and they also mentioned that Ukrainians were targeting civilians. But let me tell you what, this attack happened approximately at 11 PM local time, while in fact there is a curfew from 10 PM until 5 AM, which basically means that it is impossible for civilians to be on this bridge during the curfew hours because it is heavily guarded by the soldiers. And even if there were some casualties after this attack, most likely these were only Russian military personnel. The Russians were obviously using this bridge, or I mean whatever is left of it, to retreat to the left side of Dnipro river, and as you can see, even the withdrawal of forces is no longer safe. Which made me think, and for now this is just a crazy assumption, what if Ukrainians deliberately waited so long to attack this bridge so that a big chunk of Russian forces have enough time to escape? And when there is not too many soldiers left, this is when Ukraine will completely eliminate all the retreat routes. Which basically means that those Russians remaining in this area can be easily captured as prisoners of war along with their military equipment and vehicles. And most likely this is not true, but well, who knows. So just let me know in the comments, what do you think? I shared some translated intercepted Russian calls yesterday and the feedback from you guys was incredible. You loved it so much that I immediately realized that I just have to find some more for you. And this time Russians are talking about a friendly fire. And if you want to listen to these full calls by yourself, please consider checking my Patreon. The proceeds will be donated to Ukraine and you can find all the useful links down below. Alright, and now let me quickly give you an update about the counteroffensive in the east. And unfortunately, today the news are not great. First of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians continued to push hard in the northeast of Kharkov region and in Donetsk region. And the major battles for today were happening next to Lysychansk and Bakhmut area. And as you can see right here, Russians were successful at capturing some of these territories. But then we move to the south, where even more events are happening right now. According to the same report, the major battles of the south are happening next to Dotchany, Davidov Brid, Snehurivka and Kiselevka. And then there was obviously the attack against Antonovskiy bridge, but we already talked about it. And as you can see, Russians captured a little bit territory next to Dotchany, while Ukrainians were able to liberate a little bit more area close to Davidov Brid. And if you've been watching some of my previous videos, you already know that the major city in Kherson region at this very moment is Beryslav, because potentially this opens the access to the left side of Dnipro river for Ukrainians. You also heard about these difficult decisions that Russia will have to make in Kherson, but what's even more interesting is that today, according to the General Staff of Ukrainian forces, Russian infiltrators and collaborators in this city in Beryslav, they shut down all of their activities and left the city. Which basically means that as soon as Ukraine inevitably starts its counteroffensive in Kherson, Russians will most likely give up Beryslav without a fight. But what's bad about this is that recently we have more and more evidence that Russians are extremely serious about destroying Kakhovka hydro plant and its dam to cover their retreat. It is estimated that this facility contains approximately 18 million cubic meters of water, and if Russians decide to do it, more than 80 settlements, including the city of Kherson, are at risk of being flooded. And at the same time, it can disrupt the supply of water both to Crimea and to Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which is required to cool down the nuclear reactor. That is why Russians have to decide what is more important to them, their beloved Crimea, or I don't even know what else is important for them. So in this short video, you can see which settlements will be affected by the flooding, and it is estimated that the height of the waves can be all the way up to 4.8 meters. As always, you can download all the maps that I was drawing today for free in our Discord. The link will be down below. Alright, and now really quick, in under 1 minute, let's talk about 3 other major events that happened recently. First of all, the US is preparing another support package for Ukraine worth of $725 million. And it will include ammunition for HIMARS and artillery systems, anti-tank weapons, and 200 high-mobility vehicles. The second news is that this partial mobilization in Russia is officially over. The mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, said that people will no longer be forced to go into the army. But you know what? It was Putin who declared the partial mobilization, so it is only him who can end it. And yeah, the next conscription cycle in Russia begins on November 1st. That is why it's like, yeah, the partial mobilization is over, but in 10 days we can summon you again. And finally, and you already know it, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss, has resigned only after 45 days in power. This has been the shortest term for a Prime Minister in the United Kingdom, and among the next most potential candidates are either Rishi Sunak or even Boris Johnson. And if you're watching this video from the UK, please let me know who do you want to see next. I want to personally say thank you to Göran Daimesh and James Mayhew for becoming my most recent channel members. And if you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member as well. All the other useful links can be found to my right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you on Monday.